You're good.
All right, agenda, please. Welcome, everybody, to the June, and I don't even know what day it is, June 27th, Citizens Police Review Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This evening, our recognized excused members are Ms. McClellan, Dr. Darby, and Sheldon Williams, Mr. Williams. I believe that's it, right, Beth? And there are no other absent members this evening.
Dr. Gershio,
Yes?
Mr. Green confirmed that he was coming this evening, and upon his arrival, you can recognize a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Beth, why don't we just go into your report, because I can't present the minutes or anything, so.
Sure. Happy to.
All right.
And happy June evening to everyone. Here we are again. Our intake thus far is 116 complaints received. Puts us on track to be pretty close to what we had last year for the total. An update on a case that I opened an inquiry into the training and leadership preparation of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police supervisors. You'll recall in November, we initiated an inquiry pursuant to a couple of high-profile incidents that occurred that it looked like there was some weakness with supervisory oversight. To understand that, we approached the Bureau to obtain their curricula for leadership and skill development for newly promoted supervisors, sergeants and lieutenants and commanders. Their policy does have some criteria that they are supposed to have in place. We extracted from their policies and procedures what we would expect to see in that material. We are still up in the air. We have not received the material. The board authorized the issuance of a subpoena some time ago. We were trying to negotiate with the law department in this administration. Mr. Ward reported last month that they offered us the link to the Bureau of Police manual that's online and is clearly public, and of course we have that. So they remain resistant to that. At the last board meeting, I believe Mr. Robinson had encouraged that we step back for a minute because of the transition to a new chief of police, until we have an opportunity to explain what we're looking for and see if Chief Scarrato has an interest in fulfilling our request, or if he'd be allowed to fulfill it, whatever that may be. I will be meeting with him this week and make that courtesy visit, ask about this situation, and be able to report back to you in July whether we ended up issuing the subpoena or they voluntarily provided the material to us. Last week, on Thursday, Ms. Hampton and I met with a delegation from Armenia. The United States Department of Justice has this program they call the International Visitor Leadership Program or project. And they bring delegations from reforming or emerging democracies here so they can study our system and the different things and the way we do some things that for services that are common to both countries. And this delegation was here from June 3rd to the 24th, I believe it was. They were here in Pittsburgh on Thursday. So we spent the afternoon with them talking about the differences in the culture and law enforcement policies, practices. Basically, their theme for their project on this visit was sorry, I can't. Strengthening public relations and community outreach. That was their goal in this coming to this country. That's what we talked about. They did meet with other organizations here. They did meet with the Office of Community Engagement, with the Bureau of Police, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. They met with a variety of different groups here. They also were in was it Minneapolis, Stephanie? And Washington, D.C. and
Yes.
another location I don't recall. But they get a good exposure to how we do things here and compared to there, and what would be appropriate that they could perhaps take home and implement or replicate in Armenia. There is a major difference, and that is that Armenian law enforcement is a national police force. They have 3 different sections to it, regional, but they're all under the control of the national government, which makes it a little bit different. Obviously it's different, but what is a curious and a very admirable thing, if you look at the Armenian Constitution, a whole section, they have a whole outline about police powers and how it's to be structured and when they're permitted to use force. And it's in their constitution. It's not something that's determined by courts later on or that sort of thing. They have a very high value on that, and they have a whole training complex for officers to go through and result with a university level degree. Very high value placed on education. They were appalled that you could just be a high school graduate and come into law enforcement. So we we on behalf of the board and the delegation, we learned from each other. That's this Global Pittsburgh is the local host for these delegations. We've been on their State Department visiting tour for years now, and every time it's just fascinating to learn about not only their cultures and values, but how they see us. And it's no surprise that biggest thing that they kind of frowned on was our obsession with guns and the children that have been killed. And there's no way to defend that. But it was good. It was a nice afternoon. Stephanie, do you want to add anything to that?
No, you did well. It was a learning experience for me. I had never joined anything like that, so I appreciate it being able to tag along and listen in to get a different perspective.
Wonderful opportunities they are. Juneteenth. The Juneteenth celebration was overall a great success. There was, unfortunately, one incident that raised some controversy, and that was an interaction between Will Parker and Mayor Gainey. I'm sure that you've seen some of the news reporting about that incident. There's some dispute with regard to the facts, so we did open an inquiry into it. We're asking people that have video to please provide it. Chief Scarrato was interviewed because there were suggestions that he actually gave an order to take Mr. Parker down and that he was actually on top of Mr. Parker. The chief denies that. We don't know. We don't know enough about what the actual facts are. So we open the inquiry, and perhaps we'll have something definitive to share with you in July. And if you know of anyone who has any material or witnessed it or has a video, if you could please ask them to send it along to us, it would be very helpful. There is there's an interesting development following in Minnesota following the death of George Floyd. As you recall, the reform, the demands for reform and all that sort of thing that happened I understand that in Minnesota, there is a Department of Human Rights at the state government level. And they apparently investigated the Minneapolis City and Minneapolis Police Department. And they found that there were violations of civil rights, that they failed to protect protected speech, or whether they violated and disregarded. There was discriminatory practices and the use of excessive force. Now that office, that their own state office, and the city of Minnesota and Minnesota Police Department or Minneapolis Police Department, they came to an agreement that they would file with the state court a consent decree. So they did that in March. June 16th, I believe it was, Attorney General Garland came out and announced that there was an agreement between the U.S. Department of Justice and Minneapolis City and Minneapolis Police Department to enter into a consent decree at the federal level. Their findings were pretty much the same as what the state found. Of course, the constitutional issues were perhaps a little bit more prominent for the feds, given their patterns and practice investigations that they do that result in these consent decrees. So I guess that will be filed in the near future. The civil rights violations of excessive force, discriminatory practices, particularly against African Americans and Native Americans. The use of force after members of those protected classes were initially stopped, unreasonable force. They violated free speech, protected speech, and they also, interestingly enough, they made a finding that MPD and the city of Minneapolis discriminates against individuals exhibiting behavioral health disabilities, which of course is the whole issue of people in crisis and police responding and the aftermath that we're so familiar with. This is now a finding from the Department of Justice, and that's incredibly important. There's a push for shifting funding towards alternatives to policing, and we know that that's a big part of it: mental health crisis, behavioral health disabilities, that sort of thing. To put the proper supports in place, not to take away from one to give to another, but to bolster the supports that are available to the community and to the professionals working in the community responding to those issues. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out in Minneapolis. And remember, the first consent decree in the country was here in Pittsburgh. So we've had a lot of experience with it. What I found interesting was the focus groups that the state office conducted prior to their issuing their report and findings. They're meeting with the community groups, the activist groups, the community groups. The things that those folks wanted were much, they were all more humanely based. They were seeking relationships, respect, and having the help when they needed it from the police. When they took the findings from the police groups that they did focus with, they were all talking about employment-related things like hours and pay and health and wellness benefits. It was really interesting to see how those groups, how they came together there. Well, they didn't come together, but how different they were in what they were seeking. I haven't seen a report from the Department of Justice yet with regard to their focus groups, but they did do them. I'm sure it'll be in their general report. It'll be interesting to see how they compare. But it is an unusual circumstance. There's two consent decrees now, one state and one federal. And those electeds and bureaucrats in Minneapolis are going to have a very interesting time of it, satisfying the independent monitor, whether there will be one or two or however they do it mechanically. But that'll be heavy duty challenge for MPD as well as for the management of the city, and they earned it. And they deserve every minute of the toil that it's going to bring them. And we'll keep you up to date on that as well, because it's an interesting change or something happening in the general law enforcement arena. Another major public incident that happened that shows that things are actually changing and that the double standards are beginning to diminish is the incident in San Antonio, where a couple of days ago, 3 police officers killed a woman who was in a behavioral health crisis. They shot her. She's dead. They were immediately suspended, and within a day or 3, they were all of them were charged with murder. That's a big, huge difference. Now there's going to, there will be a lot of discussion, and from that discussion, a lot of things learned, perspectives and that sort of thing from the officers and other officers who can rationalize or justify what transpired there. We'll see how it all plays out. But, a few years ago, the officers would never have been charged. So things are changing, and they're changing for the better. Unfortunately, here in Pittsburgh, though, we have an $8 million settlement with the estate of Mr. Jim Rogers, and we still have no disposition on any criminal culpability of the officers involved because the district attorney has not disclosed a disposition. He continually says that another agency is looking at that incident. Who knows where that'll go, but it's still open-ended in that regard, and the city has agreed to pay $8 million to his estate. And from their own reporting and their own critical incident review, one of the major weaknesses in that operation, that whole scenario, was ineffective supervision. So we'll see if we can determine what their supervisory training is at someday. I do have a question for the members. And since we don't have a quorum, and Mr. Green is here.
We do.
Oh, okay, good, good. Hi, Mr. Green. You know how we all have to file the statement of financial interest? And all of us in the office have to do that as well. We're considered public employees. You all are public officials. The city has a code of ethics, and the state ethics statute controls ethics at the state level and in subdivisions. So we were thinking about this, and I came across some information that in the Office of Municipal Investigation, they have civilian investigators and they have law enforcement police officers detailed and assigned to the Office of Municipal Investigations. The civilian members of the staff at OMI must file that statement of financial interest to disclose any kind of conflict of interest and report gifts, et cetera, et cetera. The law enforcement officers, the police that are detailed and assigned to OMI, do not have to file those things, that report conflicts declared or anything like that. So it seemed to me that there's a question there with regard to the application of the ethics rules, both city and state. Now, I understand there is in state ethics commission's regulations, there are rules and regulations that police are exempt from all aspects of the ethics statute, which is not comforting when you're trying to establish trust with the community, but nonetheless, they've been excluded in regulation, not in statute. In the city, they would be considered, I believe, covered employees they perform with discretion and independent judgment. They do have an impact on individuals of greater than de minimis impact. But yet they don't have the police patrol, they do not have to file any of those things. So I don't know if there's rationale behind it at the state level, which the city pretty much mirrors, to exempt them. I don't know if it's something that should be reconsidered by state policymakers. But I'm asking if you would be opposed to my approaching the question with our local and state ethics commissions. And it would be essentially whether or not police officers below rank, the commanders and on up, they do file, but the rest of them don't. So lieutenants on down to patrol, they don't have to file anything. And again, I'm not sure why, so I'd like to find out why and whether it would be appropriate for a change in that, if there's an appetite to change it. I'm sure that the police aren't interested in that, but that's not the point. And when you have people performing in the same capacity, doing the same work, and yet there's different standards for them, that's what raised the question to me. So I'm just asking for your blessing to go ahead and start asking questions about it. And I did not want to do that because it could turn into something controversial. Mr. Green?
Yes, ma'am. No, I think you named two separate forms that are to be filled out. A statement of financial, what are they?
Interest.
Statement of financial interest.
Yes.
And that's the one we do,
Yes.
that I remember we do. And what was the second?
Disclosure of any conflict of interest.
Okay. I would definitely like to know more about the apparent discrepancy between the two groups of people.
And the broader question of whether or not sworn police officers are public employees covered by the Ethics Act or not, and if not, why not?
I find it interesting that after all these years, that, that it hasn't happened, that this is the first, this group is the one who is looking to get answers. We don't have any judicial case study. I don't know what you would call it. Doing any of these inquiries, because it's interesting. I mean, it's been around for a while, and how long have all other employees, as long as I remember, had to do financial disclosures and conflict of interest?
And that's something that I would like to bring back to you, an explanation for that, because there may be an explanation. I know that there is some history where they rejected the idea that the police didn't want anything to do with such a thing, that they were opposed to having to file such forms. And obviously, if the regulation says that they're exempt, why? There are very few public employees that have such a significant impact on individuals as police do. And then you get into some of the tawdry history of police and police corruption and all that stuff. I am not alleging that. I am not speculating that it exists. I am not pointing a finger at anybody. I've came across a policy issue, and I would like to understand it better and provide that information to the members. And if there's somewhere to go with it, fine. If there's not, fine. If it motivates someone to pursue a policy change, so be it. but I think we should understand it better, especially for the community that speaks so freely about, ethical policing, constitutional policing, and all of those things. That double standard is still there. And
I'm wondering if the firefighters have to.
I don't know. I don't know what public safety, how deep it goes, unless it just stays at their command level. The chiefs and assistant and deputies, but I can find that out, certainly, if you're okay with me pursuing these questions. Again, information seeking, there is no underlying incident here that is prompting this. It's really genuine curiosity and understanding why there's that double standard.
Do we need a motion for this, or is this just an inquiry that doesn't need a motion?
Well, you have a quorum. It's always safest to proceed in a public proceeding with a motion.
Okay. So do I hear a motion on the floor? Mr. Allen?
I move that we authorize our executive director to pursue inquiries regarding the matters that she has raised.
Second?
I second.
Any more discussion?
I do have, I guess, one discussion point. Just wondering, would there be, what else would we do? Like if we get the response to that question or we get some feedback, will that change anything that we do? Or would it just be informative for all of us? Which I do. The discrepancy with the civilian versus police investigators is what really is interesting to me. I mean, in my mind, I could see some reasons why they might exempt them. But to say they're good, but I can think of some. But yeah, this discrepancy between people doing similar situated work and one, because of their title, doesn't have to submit the same thing is odd. But I'm just curious, where would we go with that information?
Well, that would depend on what information we received and how we analyze it, I suppose. Ultimately, it's for being informed. It could go to, you may decide upon review of whatever we find, whatever we learn, that you want to send a letter recommending a policy change, or you want to hold a public hearing to determine if it's really something that the community cares about, or is it something that's just a policy wonk thing? It may lead to petitioning, not directly, but creating and motivating legislators to reconsider their to reconsider and either put it into the statute or not. It might motivate the Ethics Commission to amend their own rules and regulations to establish what are police officers. Are they public officials? Are they covered? Are they not? Are they public employees? Does this cover them or doesn't it cover them? They are public. I mean, they're employed by the public. To come to some understanding or perhaps refine a definition or somehow understand what is their status under that commission, because this is a regulation issue. It's not a statutory issue.
Any other discussion?
Lead to change.
Any other questions, discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
Aye.
There's no opposed because the 4 members voted aye. Thank you. Beth,
Thank you.
let us.
Was there, who
on.
seconded? I didn't hear who seconded.
It
Ms.
was
Brown.
Oh, thank you.
And I think, members, thank you for that. We will be taking our time sorting all this out, we'll be dealing with a massive bureaucracy, so be patient, please. We are underway with interviews for the administrative assistant position and the community liaison position. So we will meet our goal of having them in place, those two positions filled by the end of summer at the latest. And that's really exciting. That's going to be a huge, huge support mechanism, outreach mechanism. It's just a long time coming, and it's really exciting to think about what we can do with that help, with that support, competent, confident support. And the investigator position will be reopening in August.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll be growing. And I believe, unless you have questions for me. One other thing. I told you I was meeting with the chief of police, but around the issue of the shortage or the depletion of the Bureau of Police patrol officers, and overall, they are planning to put in 2 classes this year. They are still, last I heard, planning to open a class in mid-July. A class would be of 35 recruits. So if there's a change in that, we'll certainly let you know, but we have not heard that that's been canceled. So they can slowly begin to replenish, and Chief Scarrato has articulated his desire and may already have created a recruitment unit, which is consistent with what you, the board, recommended 21 years ago, to have the best, brightest, most attractive officers, the most enthusiastic officers be put on recruitment duty. Because of the shortage of officers, he did not want to deplete the active rosters. So it's going to be a little bit of a part-time secondary kind of activity, I suppose, till they put this unit together as a cohesive duty assignment. But he is moving in that direction so that they can expand their recruitment efforts and hopefully be able to hustle up and get the Bureau back to its authorized force of 900 officers.
And what was the current,
And
I forget what was last month. It was what, they were down significant numbers.
They're about 827 officers, I think, somewhere around that. Almost 100 down. And it can be done, but the problem is now that overtime and the fatigue in the officers. The other night they were looking for 10 to fill a shift. You can't make them work so hard that they make themselves sick and then they can't come to work. So they're going through all of that. I will know more by the end of this week after I've met with the chief, and I am confident that he is doing something about it.
Thank you. Anything else on the report before we go to back to the agenda on the minutes?
No, that's it for me. Thank you, Dr. Gershia.
Thank you. So we now have our quorum. So what we need to do is to accept the approval of our May minutes. I believe you got those all a few weeks ago. So hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to read them. I need a motion to accept.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from May 23rd.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All right. So I don't believe we need a full vote on that, but anybody opposed to those minutes? All right, thank you. So we had the chair's report. I mean, the chair has the report this month. We heard from the executive director, And we have no unfinished business this month that I recall. Does anybody have any unfinished business? Okay, hearing none. We're gonna move to, well, we heard from Beth, so we do have a little bit of new business with Beth's findings of ethics and signing the financial and disclosures. So case review. We will now take the case reviews. Miss Stephanie pulls them up, we'll begin. All righty. So let me move everybody's beautiful picture out of the way. And we have one for full investigation. That's case 083-23. Do I have a motion? Mr. Green, second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Been moved, seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Then we have 6 for full investigation. That's 071-23 EDI.
Excuse me 1 second. It's a 30-day full investigation,
Oh, I'm sorry.
30-day extension.
Yeah, my pictures are in the way. 30-day
worry.
071-23 EDI, case 055-23, case 035-23, case 029-23, and case 02523. And the last one, case 016-23 EDI. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, sir. Second,
I second.
Second.
thank you. Any
Okay.
questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. We have one case that is unfounded, and that's case 004-23. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
thank you, Kiki. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Aye.
We have 3 cases that are unsustainable, and that's case 005-23, case 143-22, and case 085-22. May I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, sir. Second,
I will second.
thank you, sir. Discussion?
I did have a question about 00523. And I think I understood it when I read the actual report, but it said the commander addressed the issue. So that confirms the allegations. We're dismissing it as unsustainable. Could you clarify that? I read why, but I was just curious. It seems weird because it seems like they have acknowledged what happened through the camera.
Miss Bridget, can you respond, please?
Yes. Yes, it was at OMI and they sent it back to the zone. The commander did address it with the officers. Then he sent me a video of the training maneuvers that they do. He acknowledged that it should not be done in public or when anybody is around. He said it's actually a good training exercise because they actually only do that once a year on their recertification. So he had a conversation with the officers. And it was just it was addressed internally.
Okay, so I guess we're not they didn't acknowledge that it was unprofessional, just that might have just been bad timing considering the event.
Yes, I guess it was during a protest, and I guess, or complaining, I guess she saw it. And they shouldn't have done it when anybody was around. So he addressed it. He did acknowledge that. He said they always.
Okay, thank you, Bridget.
He did say that they always treat those cones or those indicators as if it were a person, a child, or a human, or just a person, because it makes good training for when they're doing dignitary details or presidential details or just any type of detail. It just gives them that extra training. And he invited me to the training and I accepted.
Did you find it to be a good training?
I haven't gone yet because
Oh, okay.
they started one about 2 weeks ago and I was on vacation. I had vacation days, but I told him that I was willing to go to the next one.
Okay, cool. You'll have to let us know.
Okay, if you want to come, I'm more than welcome.
I think the issue here was that it was not a tactic of intimidation. That was what Sherry had to discern. Whether the officers were trying to intimidate the protesters, or if it was just an aside thing where the opportunity presented itself. And I think you were satisfied with that, Sherry. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's helpful to know, because I guess that's what I was just looking at unsustainable, when it was like the act actually occurred, but it was the motivation was determined to be untimed, unofficial training versus that's helpful to me. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We'll move on. We have 2 other cases.
I think we still have to vote on that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Now we can move on to the 2 other. The first one is 017-23, where the investigator found out the subject officer is no longer employed by the Pittsburgh Police Bureau. Then we have the other one, 175-22, where the subject officer was given verbal reprimand. So do I have a motion?
Are we doing both of these together?
Yes, sir.
Well, they say different things, so I'm not sure what the motion should be.
I mean, we could certainly do them separately. Let's do number 1, the 017-23, where the investigator found the subject officer was no longer employed by the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police.
I move to dismiss this one as being out of jurisdiction.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did we have any discussion? I'm sorry. Did any discussion? The ayes have it. All right, and now we'll look at case number 175-22, authorized to dismiss as resolved, where the subject officer was given a verbal reprimand. And
I'll make that motion.
thank you, sir. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. I believe we have 3 for suspension. Number 028-23, number 010-23, and 206-22. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. And there'll be a suspension until July, so we should hear an update. So the ayes have it.
We didn't vote.
Did we vote?
Ayes,
Aye.
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 opposed. Now we have it. All righty, now we have. Let me see the top of that. Possible closing dates, just informational.
Yes.
So do we want to go one by one for these or just
Not
take,
sure a vote is
Dr.
necessary.
Garcia,
yes?
yes,
I'm going.
Mr. Ward, just, this is just for information. And the team decided that they're gonna really try to clear as many of these as they can. That those that aren't taken care of by July through your August break, so that when you return in September, this list will be whittled down significantly.
Do we have the total number? I did not count them. Do we have a total number of those? Like 15 or something?
The number is 15. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't write it up there.
That's right. All right, thank you.
15. Yep.
All right, that's it for our case studies. And I forgot at the beginning, if anybody wants to speak out in the public, I see that there's one question in the chat.
Saying hello.
Oh, no question. Mark and Trish just want to say hello, but the chat is disabled again. Hi, Mark and Trish. Thanks for joining us again this month. You are real troopers. We appreciate you. Anybody sign up to speak?
Nope, no one else is in the audience except Nigel.
Nigel? Okay. So our next meeting is, calendar here, July 25th. Again, via Zoom. So we'll see everybody. Do I have there's one, no public comment. Do I have a motion to adjourn at 6:58 p.m.?
There's a hand up.
Oh,
Oops. Oh,
I'm sorry, Dr. Gershio, it's just me. I wanted to acknowledge that Nigel has been extraordinarily supportive in the last couple of months, getting our website back up to date and giving us some blurbs that we can post for general public knowledge about the meetings. I just want to acknowledge and appreciate and thank you for what he's done to support the effort here.
Nigel, thank you on behalf of the board and the staff. Hearing no other comment, 6:58 p.m. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you, sir. Second?
I'll second.
All right. Second, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Have a